about those protesting, though?
I don't believe that anybody should be anonymous, but precisely someone that is enforcing the law that comes into your house, knocks on your door, should not be anonymous. Their name should be branded in their uniform, and we should be able to identify their face. Absolutely.
And just to add to that, how do we know who these individuals are? Any Joe Schmo on the street can now claim to be an ICE agent and harm someone in our communities. That cannot stand. That could not stand. You would not want someone random to come up and accost you, and you have no way of indicating who they are, where they're taking you, what their mission is. These individuals must comply with making sure that they're known. I'm talking about law enforcement. We're talking about law enforcement. Protesters and law enforcement are not on the same level. So to try to equate the two is a false equation. Next.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Michael Jones, Once Upon a Hill. Democrats joined Republicans last night on a resolution to condemn the terrorist attack in Boulder last week. It shows that bipartisanship, that Democrats are willing to stand with Republicans on issues of democracy, issues of fighting anti-Semitism. Are you disappointed that so few Republicans have come out and joined you all in pushing back against the Trump administration and what you all describe as lawless? And what do those conversations look like with your colleagues behind the scenes across the aisle? Are you hopeful that some will join you all in condemning the Trump administration, this lawlessness that you claim is going on?
I'm disappointed, but I'm not surprised.
I can say that there are Republicans who are weaponizing tools to fight anti-Semitism. Republicans say they stand against anti-Semitism, and at the same time, they're trying to decimate funding to agencies like the Department of Education's Office for Civil Rights, which is our main agency to fight back against anti-Semitism on campuses, for example.
Yes? Your name and outlet? Okay.
Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum has described some of the protesters as heroes. Does that raise any concerns in terms of national sovereignty or political interference from abroad?
You know, everyone has their observations. You know, we don't live in isolation, and people are watching what's taking place around the world here in the United States. Like we have here our First Amendment right to speak out, she has hers.
The Mexican president is entitled to her opinion. Our president wants to rename the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. How about that? Is that hemispheric interference? He has opinions about practically every country in the world. Not all the time the best opinions. He's called countries names that I will not pronounce in this audience. So he has his own opinion. She's entitled to hers. No. Vladimir Putin, penetrated social media. He orchestrated actions that many could characterize as election fraud. He was actively involved in swaying the American public in support of one candidate against the other. I don't think that's what the Mexican president is doing.
Say your name.
Congressmember Nanette Berrigan, California's 44th District. The Mexican president, when she made these comments, was referring to people that were protesting peacefully against mass deportations. And of course, in Los Angeles, we have a large Mexican population. So I stand with the people in Los Angeles who are protesting peacefully against these mass deportations and against the process, which is ICE treating people without any dignity and inhumanely. So I believe the context in which she said it was about standing with protesters and making sure people are treated with dignity. So let's not confuse that with Vladimir Putin and him interfering with an election that has nothing to do with Russian Americans.
I see you. Yes.
You've described what Trump is doing in Los Angeles as lawlessness and unconstitutional and a violation of human rights. Do these things rise to the level of impeachment? Are these impeachable offenses?
Well, You know, I do. I believe it is. I definitely believe it is. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Yes?
I'm hoping you can just take a step back and characterize the nature of the protest. I think you're getting a lot of questions about instances of violence, whether you characterize them as peaceful. Can you just kind of describe for us, how you see these protests? Are they mostly peaceful? Instances violent? Are they violent protests?
You have heard all of us say and ask protesters to be peaceful. When the protests right here at the United States Capitol were happening, when there was more violence than we had ever seen on the first and second day of the protest in LA, this exact president, when we were begging him to send in the National Guard, when there was already violence and vandalism right here, he refused to do so. So now he's going to turn the argument around and say it's about public safety? You can't be a hypocrite like that.
This is not a mob chanting, Jews will not replace us in Virginia. This is not a violent mob chanting, hang Mike Pence, where's Nancy, in the Capitol. For the most part, the protesters are peace-abiding people that are concerned about the aggressiveness of ICE and human rights and the treatment of immigrants across the country. I don't know of any immigrant that leaves his or her house in the morning and says, wait a minute, let me see how I break the law today, get arrested, and deported. Quite the contrary. They probably leave their houses and say, I'm going to abide with the law. I don't want to be stopped. I don't want to be arrested and deported. So the people that are protesting, for the most part, they're not violent. They're not there to cause issues of trouble or vandalism. The ones that are there causing that, we're rejecting that forcefully, and we're saying to people, protest peacefully. But certainly, this is not to the standard of a mob chanting, Jews will not replace us, or hang Mike Pence.
Yes.
I'm Julio Chavez with Reuters. Seeing what the response has been in California, what are your thoughts on how counter-protesters may be received here in D.C. On the weekend for the birthday parade?
Well, as long as they're peaceful, they have a right. No more questions? Yes, sir. And what is your name again?
Yeah, Jacob Adams, Daily Signal. Immigration was a top issue during the 2024 election, which President Trump won, including the popular vote. Do you worry that the American people want, border enforcement and are not with you on this issue?
Well, first of all, the border has the lowest crossings in over the past 10 years right now. So it's not about border crossings. What we're talking about are core constitutional values, due process. And this president has violated that. And so, notwithstanding winning an election, I don't believe that any person of goodwill would see what is taking place across this nation and not be concerned about the way that this is being conducted, the violation of human rights, the lack of due process. And we're beginning to see a shift in people who thought one thing about how Donald Trump was going to conduct his immigration policy, which was to go after violent criminals, and are now seeing their neighbors, their congregants, people they work with, being harassed, being disappeared, and being treated as subhuman. All right, we're good. Enjoy the rest of the day, folks.
agenda.